Hello and welcome. This is the Green Transport Recovery webinar series hosted by Landor Links. I'm Beata Kubitz, and today I have with me Benoit Yamanjo from Smoove, who is here to talk about the Smoove system around the world. Now, before I start, just to let you know that this webinar is going to be made available later. It's being recorded at the moment. It'll be uploaded in a couple of hours, so if you miss anything, the slides will be available and you'll be able to have a look back through it. Also, you should have a question box on your screen. We're taking questions from the audience and we should be able to answer those questions. We'll answer as many as we possibly can during the question and answer session at the end of the webinar. If you don't get your question answered, we will be emailing those to Smoove for individual answers where possible. Thanks very much. So it's time to introduce Benoit Yamanjo from Smoove to ask you how a little bit more about your system across the world. Would you like to introduce Smoove to us?
Yes, thank you, Beata. So yes, I'm going to present a little bit who we are and what we're doing. So maybe we can go to the next slide. So Smoove, next slide, please. So I'm gonna present with those slides. So the Smoove has been created 12 years ago. So in 2008. So we have now 12 years of existence. So we started by implementing our system in middle-sized city in France, in Avignon, in Montpellier, in Clermont-Ferrand. And we went international in 2011, starting to roll out bigger systems in Moscow and other big cities. We started the Paris scheme and Vélib in 2018, which will be one of the focus of today's session, and to talk about this big system. Just to clarify a little bit our involvement in this in Paris. So we are the system provider. So we provide the solution. We provide the stations, the bikes, the software to the operator, which is Smoove & Go. So Smoove & Go being a consortium made between Smoove, Indigo, and Movencia, so 3 different companies who are operating the system. So Smoove is Smoove position is the provider of the solution and not the operator. So this was in 2018. So when we started Paris, and we'll come a little bit more in details on this scheme, and then we added other new schemes, other new cities with Lima and other cities in Russia in recent years. Next slide, please. So Smoove today. So we are 70 people. We have a turnover of 35 million euros in 2018. We have more than almost 50,000 bikes in use in the world, so in 23 cities over 3 continents. And you will see more in details in the next slide. The cities where we are present. So next slide, please. So we are, as I've just said, present in 23 cities. We are in Paris, of course, with 20,000 bikes. We are in Moscow with 5,000 bikes. We are in Helsinki in Finland with 3,000 bikes. In Vancouver in Canada with 2,000 bikes. In Lima in Peru. In Bangkok in Thailand. In Marrakesh in Morocco, and many other cities, and also in the UK with small schemes in Slough and Kingston University. So 23 cities and 14 countries. So this is basically who we are, and yes, in a nutshell, who Smoove is.
So a very international presence there for Smoove. I think one of the schemes that it has most analogies to the UK is possibly the Paris scheme. Would you like to just explain a little bit more about your relationship in Smoove & Go, how you operate the Paris scheme, and some of the issues that you found?
Yeah. So as I just explained, so we are the provider of the solution, of the all bike share solution for Paris. We provide this solution to Smoove, and Smoove is the operator of the solution in Paris. What is a little bit complicated in the scheme is that Smoove is also a shareholder of Smoove, so that's why there's sometimes a confusion between Smoove and Smoove. Just to give a little bit more detail on Paris. So Paris, we have 20,000 bikes, 1/3 being e-bikes and 2/3 mechanical bikes. We have in Paris today more than 400,000 subscribers. So it's a very big scheme. So it's today the biggest scheme in the world outside of China. We have recorded new records in September and October with more than 200,000 trips per day on the scheme, and so it's a scheme which is really big, which is almost like twice bigger than the second biggest scheme in the world. So it's a very big one. And just more detail, maybe on the subscribers. So as I've just said, we've got 400,000 subscribers in Paris. Many more women, many more young people than we had before. So it's a very inclusive scheme and very. I mean, it's a scheme, a bike share which has been adopted by the whole population in Paris. On this slide, maybe you can see the huge peaks we are facing in Paris for different reasons. The first one you see is RATP, which is the strikes, public transport strikes we had in the beginning of the year. You are seeing at the end of this graph of the chart the impact of the COVID crisis and of the post-lockdown usage of the bike. So we are experiencing massive peaks in use in Paris. And so when I was mentioning the more than 200,000 rides per day, so it's the consequence of the post-lockdown in Paris.
I think, Benoit, we've seen a lot of that within bike schemes across the world, that there's been an enormous interest in bike share during the COVID crisis, and also this issue where we're seeing more women riding bikes through bike share schemes, which is a fantastic inclusive feature of them. Would you like to go more into the key lessons that you've learned from operating Paris over the last 2 years?
Yes, yes. I think that the first one, which is a consequence of what we've just seen and of the peaks of usage, the fact that from one day to another you can have a usage which is doubled, that you can see during the same day, because you've got a football game, because you've got a concert, you can see very high peak of usage which are more local on your scheme. So the first thing and the first lesson we learned from Paris and from this experience is that you need to have a system which is more agile, more flexible. As you know, Smoove has been used to develop solutions which are dog-based, so fully dog-based, and that's the solution we currently have in the 23 cities I've just mentioned. But what we see, and from what we saw in Paris, you need to be more flexible. You need to be able to increase the size of your system overnight. You need to be able to have like new stations around the concert, the stadium, because you know that thousands of people are going to go to this place at night. You need to be able to extend your scheme more rapidly without having a lot of roadworks to do. So to be able to have this flexibility in your system, combining with the security of dogs, because we are convinced that you still need to have dogs to make sure that your scheme is ordered, to make sure that your bikes are fully secured. But you need to have this flexibility, and this flexibility we are bringing it with with a virtual station, with the fact that now we are able with our technology to combine the dock solution and the free-floating solution. So you can have virtual station that you can add on your system temporarily, and make sure that your system is always very agile, very flexible, and that you can adjust the system overnight to make sure that you will always meet the demand of bikes in every part of the city. So this is one of the big evolution we have made on our system from what we learned from Paris. Another lesson we learned from Paris is the usage of e-bikes. As I've just said, we have in Paris 1/3 of e-bikes and 2/3 of mechanical bikes, but the usage is not the same. What we see that despite having only 1/3 of e-bikes, more than 50% of the trips are made on e-bikes. We see that, for example, on average in Paris in September, on e-bikes, we had on average 15 rides per day versus 7 to 8 rides per day for mechanical bike. And something which is quite interesting to see that when a user is coming to a station and he's got the choice between e-bikes and mechanical bikes, in 2/3 of the times he will choose the e-bike. So and this is funny, but this is a choice that the young people will make. The younger you are, the more you are going to take an e-bike. This is what we see in Paris. And also we have more women wanting e-bikes. What we have seen with e-bikes is that it's not just making people shifting from mechanical bike to e-bikes. It's also adding new people to the system, because some people who were not riding bikes before the introduction of e-bikes are now using it, and so it's massively used. And as I've just said, 2/3 of people are taking an e-bike when they have the choice. And yes, so what do we learn from this? Which has been quite a surprise, because we thought at the beginning that 1/3 of e-bike would be a good share of e-bike, because if you compare to other schemes in the world, it's still a very big offer of e-bikes. But what we learned from this, the first thing is that you need to have 100% of charging stations. This is what we have in Paris, but you really need to have 100% of charging stations, because it's the only way you have the needed flexibility to manage a big fleet of e-bikes. The second lesson we took from this experience is that you need to have at least 50% of e-bikes. Why is it dangerous to have less than 50% of e-bikes? That if you offer, for example, 10% of e-bikes, and we see some cities like offering, okay, we want to have e-bikes on our scheme, so we offer 10% of e-bikes, but at the end, when you offer 10% of e-bikes, your e-bikes are just overused. They are always with empty batteries. They are because they are overused. They are in a condition which is not as good as you could expect, and at the end, it's just generating frustration for the users. So if you have the choice between having 10% of e-bikes and no e-bikes, I mean, it's better to have no e-bikes. If you want to introduce e-bikes in your scheme, you need to have at least 50% of e-bikes to make sure that your scheme remain well balanced between e-bikes and mechanical bikes, and to make sure that you're not generating frustration among the users.
So quite some interesting logistics issues around the e-bikes and the bikes. And also, maybe you could tell us a little bit about user behaviour. One of my personal bits of research has been on bike share vandalism, and so I'm really interested to hear what your experience has been and what you've done to try and combat that.
Yeah. So when we started Paris, we already had like more than 20 cities in the world where we had our bikes deployed. and we were not prepared to such a level of vandalism. This has been one of the biggest surprise we had in Paris, with a very high level of vandalism. So bikes which were deteriorated, sometimes voluntarily, bikes which were in very bad state and unusable for some of them because of this vandalism, and which was, I think, a consequence of several things. One being the fact that this is a very wide system, and as it was deployed in some sensitive neighborhood, in some in a very large part of the Paris metro area. And at the end, yes, we had really issue with being sure maintaining the level, the good condition of the bikes, because of this level of vandalism, which has been really high, and much higher than everything that we've seen in the 20 other cities where we have bikes. And so maybe just on the next slide, I think that yes, in terms of lessons, because I think that Paris is not the only city in the world where you can experience such a high level of vandalism. I think that the first thing you need to do to avoid this vandalism is to make sure that your system, your bike sharing scheme, is inclusive by design, to make sure that your scheme is made, you anticipate the fact that your scheme will be equal in terms of accessibility to all the communities, to all the neighborhoods, to make sure that everyone is going to respect and to respect your bikes, and to make sure that vandalism will be kept as low as possible. The second thing you need to do is to educate, to manage your community through the life of your system, and to make sure that people feel that system is their system. It's part of their everyday mobility, and they need to respect the system. So this is a challenge. This is something which is more done by the operator, by Smoove, but which has to be done to make sure that you keep your vandalism low. But you will never avoid the vandalism in your system, and that's why that the main thing we have done at Smoove to make sure that we reduce the vandalism, but we reduce the consequences of vandalism, is to make our hardware more robust. You can see on the next slide the number of changes we've made on the bikes. This is from the beginning of Paris to now. So in less than 3 years, we made more than 50 modifications on the bike, from the taillight to the headlight, on the handlebar. We changed the battery, we changed the controller, we changed the wheel, we changed the tire, etc. So we made a lot of changes just to cope with this issue of vandalism, which is not only vandalism, but also the fact that some bikes, and especially the e-bikes, were overused. So we made a lot of changes on the bike to make sure that the bike is now one of I would say the most robust bike you can see on the market, thanks to the learning curve we had in Paris, which has been very tough, but which made our bike one of the more robust today. Maybe next slide. Yeah, this is also something we've seen. So we talk about vandalism. Now we are more going to talk about the way the people are using the system. We have seen in the 3 last years in Paris, and that we've seen in many other cities in the world, is that now the public bike share system is one micro mobility option, but you have a lot of different options. You can use e-scooters, you can use like B2C e-bikes, like Jump. You can use a lot of different systems, and so we have today generation of people that wants to to have the choice between a lot of different modes of micromobility. And one of the consequences of this is that your mode of micromobility needs to be very simple, because you're not the only one. And so you need to have an experience which is as smooth as possible, which is as easy as possible. You need to be able to take a bike with your smartphone in a very easy way. You need, once you're on your bike, the experience on the bike needs to be very easy. It needs to be not to be complicated to use the bikes, or not to have many options. For example, on the bikes in Paris, our approach was to give as many possibilities as we could to the user. So, for example, the user could choose between 3 levels of assistance on the e-bikes. He could use the manual gears system. So we wanted it to be very, I would say, yeah, to make sure that the user could use the bikes as he wanted. But at the end, what we saw is that people are not using 3 levels of electric assistance on the e-bikes. Are only using one level, and at the end, they are frustrating. If they are not. I mean, it can be quite complicated to change the level of assistance, so it can generate frustration. So at the end, they are just using the highest one. That's the same for the manual gears. At the end, people prefer to have like auto gears and to have a very simple experience. So, and that's what we can see on the next slide. I think we made sure that our system was very easy to use, very simple to use. So first change was on the user interface. So we now have on our system a user interface which is 100% based on the smartphone. So you can unlock your bike just using a smartphone. As you know, we want to make sure that our system remains inclusive, and that even people without smartphone can access the system. So we still have options to make sure that we have an universal access to the system. But we have developed a totally new user interface to make sure that people can use the system fully with their system. The second change we've made on the bikes is that now the bike has an automatic electrical assistance, so you don't need to manage the level of assistance you want. So it's just automatically put, and the same for the gear system. So we had like manual gears, and now it's an auto gear, automatic gear system on the bike. So we are now sure that our system is very easy to use for subscribers for sure, but also for one-day users. And for everyone who want to access the system, it's now just a matter of having the app on your smartphone, and you can ride straight away the bikes.
So a bit about data and analytics. What we're all interested in is how bike share works within different city schemes, who's using it, and why.
Yes. So yeah, we know, and we see that data analytics is becoming more and more important in all the schemes, in all the cities where we have bikes. The first thing, and we have three, I mean, I would say three different group of people wanting to have access to the data analytics. We have the user, we have the operator, and we have the cities. The users, they want and they need to have more predictability in the system. For example, if a user is coming to a full state, to an empty station, he needs to know when he will get a bike. When a user wants to return a bike and is in front of a full station, he needs to be able to know when he will have a position to return the bike. So the users need to have more predictability to make sure that the system is efficient, because we know that it's generating a lot of frustration amongst the users when you come to a full station with a bike, or when you arrive to an empty station, you want a bike. For the operators, they need to know at every time where the bikes are and in which condition they are, and so you need to be able to have remote diagnosis to make sure that at any moment. The operator knows which bike needs to be removed and which bikes needs to be repaired, and this is quite fundamental the way you are managing the system. And then the cities, because today they are investing a lot in the cycling infrastructures, they need to have data on the way these infrastructures are used. They need to have data on the way the system is used, and to understand what they need to develop, what they need to change, and how they need to adjust the system and the cycling infrastructure. Next slide, and you will see how we are addressing these challenges in our new system. The third thing, so we are adding a lot of predictability for the users. So I've given two examples. So the example of the user in front of an empty station and the user with a bike in front of a full station. So we are adding predictability in the system to make sure that we can give information to the user that he will have an empty position in 2 minutes, or a bike will be returned in 1 minute. So he knows that he can wait in front of the station, and there's much more predictability for the users. In terms of infrastructure, so our approach is to really share all the data with the city, and to make sure that as we've just seen at the beginning of the presentation, if we take the example of Paris, you know, around 40% of the bike rides in Paris are made on the Vélib. So it means that the data generated by the system is huge for the design of the cycling infrastructure. And so we give all this data, and we make all this data available to the cities to make sure that the infrastructure is always adjusted, and the system is always adjusted to make sure that it meets the demand, and yes, and combined with what we've just seen with the agility of the system and of virtual station, you can adjust the system and adjust cycling infrastructure accordingly. And also we are giving more data to the operator, so data with remote diagnosis. So all our bikes, and especially our e-bikes, will be equipped with remote diagnosis. So the operator will be able to know the condition of the bike which is in the street. So for example, to know that the controller is not working, or that there's a flat tire, because we have detected that with a sensor in the bike that one of the tire was flat. So we'll give a lot of information to the operator to make sure that the operator is taking the right bikes and is repairing the right bike in the system. And the last thing on the data and on the software is that we are always increasing the mass compatibility of our system, because as I've said just before, our system is used as part of the transport system. People are riding a bike just after having gone to the tube station, or having used a bus, and so you need to make sure that your system is fully integrated to the public transport system, and then we are making sure that our system is fully compatible with mass solutions.
Thank you very much, Benoit. That was absolutely fascinating. And it's now time to move on to questions and answers. And obviously, there are some questions that I've been picking up on in the chat box that sort of are very much drawn together, and questions that I have myself about your system. And the first one is more about the relationship that you have with cities in Paris or wherever, how the schemes are supported by the city, what kind of revenue support you have, perhaps, whether, is this commissioned or procured by the city, or is it a privately operated system? How does that work in the sort of business case and the economics of it?
So it's very different from a scheme to another. As an operator, as a provider of the solution, so Smoove is a provider of solutions. So we are mainly selling bikes, and we are selling the system to the operator, and then the operator is managing the the contract with the city. And this contract can be very different from one city to another. I think it's in the way we are working with the cities, we really need to, at the beginning, when we are discussing the contract and even before the tender, you just need to make sure that you align the objective of the operator and of the city. For example, we have many cities in the world where the operator is just getting like a fixed fee, in an annual fixed fee for the system. And if the system is very used or underused, it doesn't change anything. So we have operators in some cities in the world that are just hoping for rain, because when it's raining, the bikes are less used, and and also you need to make less repairs, and it's less expensive, and it's a little bit stupid. So you really need to make sure that you align the objective of the operator and of the city. So but it's very different from a city to another. So I don't have like a generic answer to this question. It really depends on the city.
And when we're talking about cities, a few of the questions that have come in have been about the size of schemes. So Mark Strong's noticed that you work in Slough, so I think he'd quite like to hear about some of what your operations in the UK are like, and also what the smallest city you would consider is. What kind of a size of an operation do you think is, and population relationship is actually the minimum viable for a bike share scheme?
Yeah, I think that before introducing the virtual station and the fact that we are now able to roll out systems without big capex, because we don't need like dock station everywhere, we are now able to address smaller cities. I would say that the smallest system that Smoove is addressing is around 500 bikes. We are not going to a smaller system than 5,000 bikes, 500 bikes, sorry. But 500 bikes is something we can do with quite limited capex, thanks to a combination of dock station and virtual station.
Okay. So it's basically more about the size of the scheme. You haven't actually done any analysis on city size that would support such a scheme. Because I think there are a lot of smaller places in the UK that are wondering whether bike share would be for them. You know, places from Dundee and Stirling right through to Halifax in North Yorkshire.
Yeah, I think that's 500 bikes corresponds to I would say a city of around 100,000 inhabitants. Okay. I think that then for these cities, you need to set the right combination between the bike sharing system, public bike sharing system, and long-term rental. So this is something that we see in a lot of cities, like a combination of the two. And I would say that the smaller the city and the higher the long-term rental share should be. This is what we see and what we push in smaller cities.
And by long-term rental, you mean people who are renting for a month rather than a day or an hour?
Yes, exactly. It's people taking a bike for 3 months, 6 months, and generally the cities are just like subsidizing this type of use to make sure that after 6 months the people are going to buy their own bike. So it's just a way of having more people riding bikes using this long term, which is 3 months to 6 months.
And in terms of the metrics that you collect, do you have any idea of what people are moving from to bike share? So are they moving from bus and metro to bike share, or are they moving from other modes of transport, walking or car driving?
So we don't have all the information. From what we see that the stations which are the most used are the stations which are the train station and then the tube station. So we see that our system is very used by people also using the public transport, and so that's why we really need to. And that's what we did at Smoove to develop the urban planning very upstream to the implementation of the scheme, because you really need to make sure that your system is the interface with the public transport is very well done, because people who are using bike sharing system are people who are using also other modes of transport generally, because if not, you generally prefer to have your own bike, but using a share bike is a way of using multimodality and other type of transport in your trip.
Just to kind of carry on from that, there's an open data question. A few people have been asking things about how you integrate with other transport networks. Do you provide an open API for your bike share system? Could it integrate with ticketing and back office for a multimodal system like they have maybe in Cologne or some of the German cities?
Yes. As I just say, we want to be very compatible with all the mass solutions. So in our future system, yes, we offer an API to make sure that people have access to the data.
There are quite a few groups of questions, so I'm trying to bring together different people's questions here so that we get as many answered as possible within the time frame. Have you had any kind of idea from the UK government? What do you feel it needs to do to boost bike share use in England? Do you have any ideas? This is a question from Roger Geffen. And is there any kind of legislation that you think would support responsible operators? I think there are people thinking specifically about how you prevent streets being littered with bikes that are semi-abandoned or vandalised. You know, other things that you think that would actually support responsible bike share operations, or indeed responsible scooter share operations.
So sorry, I'm not sure to have understood the question. The question is, what do I think that could be done to better push the use of bikes, right?
I think it's actually two questions in one. How would you how do you think that legislation should support bike share, and also how do you think that rules should be created to support responsible bike share? So I think we all sort of suffered slightly from the experience with Mobike in Manchester, where there was a lot of vandalism, and the scheme wasn't scoped in such a way that we dealt with that promptly and responsibly. So how do we stop that happening again and ensure that we get responsible operators who deal with vandalism and bikes being parked in the way of people who may be visually impaired and things like that?
Yes, I think that the first thing you need to do is to make sure, and that's something I just mentioned at the beginning, that you need to make sure that your system is well designed at the beginning and designed in accordance with the public transport. So you need to make sure that your bike share system is not like a privately owned solution which is offered to people, but which is a brick of your public transport system. So it needs to be part of the public transport system. You need to design it, and you need to really make the urban planning at the beginning to make sure that this is you're designing the system as you're designing a bus line or something like that. So you may need to make sure that the interface with the public system is well done, and for that you really need to it needs to be managed by the transport authorities. I mean, you can't rely on the private initiative to make sure that the system is well done, because if you are a Mobike or Jump, you are just you just want to maximize the usage of your bikes, and you will not deploy your system in some part of the cities. You will not deploy the system in some communities. So you need to have this public initiative, and it needs to be managed as a part of the public transport if you want to make sure that it's inclusive and that it's addressing all the part of the city the same way, and to make sure that people are adopted the system everywhere in the city. So it needs to be public. And the second thing is that it needs to be managed together with all the investment you will do in the infrastructure. So we've said that we are providing all the data to make sure that we see where the cycling infrastructure is underused, overused, where you need to potentially develop your infrastructure. So you need also to make sure that all the investments you're making in the infrastructure are made together with this investment system. What we've seen in Paris, and we've seen a 70% increase in the bike usage just after the lockdown, and yeah, we've seen it because of the what we call the Corona piste in French, and the cycling lanes just for the temporary cycling lanes, and we see that the usage of the belief is also linked to this additional infrastructure. So I think that it needs to be something managed by the public authorities, public transport authorities, as a part of the transport offer in the city, and it can't be managed by B2C players.
Interesting. I'd like to move on to a group of questions that I've had just very specifically about the kind of relationship of e-bikes within the scheme. There are quite a few different ones. One is the sort of relative cost of e-bikes compared to the normal bikes, and the cost of docking stations, and is that reflected in the pricing to the public? So, you know, do they pay the same amount to use an e-bike as they do to use a pedal cycle? And how does that map to the cost for you as a operator?
Yeah, so in terms of cost for the users, so there's not a big difference in Paris between e-bikes and mechanical bikes. So this is also why e-bikes are so heavily used. And yes, as in terms of I would say total cost of ownership, an e-bike is I would say around 20–30% more expensive than a mechanical bike, and then it's also more expensive to maintain because you have electric parts, you have of course more failure possibilities because you have a controller, you have an engine, you have a power sensor, so it's also more expensive to maintain. But I think that it's just it's just a choice of the city, because yes, the capex will be higher because also the stations, which are electric stations, are more expensive than normal station and normal docks. But what we see with e-bikes is that it's really adding new people to the system. It's not just, as I've said, it's not just people shifting from mechanical bikes to e-bikes. It's really people who are not riding bikes who are riding e-bikes, especially women and young people. So yes, it's an investment, and it's more expensive for the city, but it's really a way to increase the usage of the bike much faster in the city.
And there's some quite specific questions, like why did you decide to use docking stations rather than swapping batteries? I noticed that you said that you needed to have 100% docking stations for e-bikes, but could you have avoided that, or did you consider it?
I mean, we considered it, and we are developing a new bike with a swappable battery, so which will be available by the end of the next year. So this is something additional which will give more agility and flexibility to the system, because yes, if you have virtual stations and light station with, for example, Sheffield stands, and also you have a lot of e-bikes. At the end, you will need to have, if you have a big share of this type of stations, you will need to have swappable batteries because at the end of the day, the e-bikes won't be charged. So you need to combine both. I think that managing the charge of the system is much easier with electrical station, because you need more capex at the beginning, but you need much less people on the ground to swap the batteries. So it just in terms of total cost of ownership, we see that it's better to invest more at the beginning with electric station, and then don't have to swap batteries. But it's just at the end a matter of the balance you have between virtual station and dock station. If you want to have a very secured system with a lot of dock station, then you don't need a swappable battery. If you are in a city, and we have city like this, like in Sweden, in Finland, where you have you don't have such a need of securization of your system, where you have less vandalism, maybe you can have a lot of virtual station. You can also go to fully free floating system, and then you need to have swappable battery. So that's why we are adding this to our roadmap, and that we will have a bike with swappable battery by the end of next year. So that at the end, it's just a matter of balance you put in your system between virtual and dock station.
So I think one of the messages is that you need to have a mixture of geo-fenced areas and virtual and the docks. But how do you actually deter people from misusing the bikes and leaving them outside the areas that you want them left in? I've had a question here from Andy Vose about how you make sure that people don't just dump their bikes if they are free floating.
So when you have a virtual station, the user can only end the ride and his ride when he's within the virtual station. So it means that if you're outside the virtual station, you can't put an end to your ride. So you are still paying,
right.
And you can't on the app on your smartphone. You can't end the trip.
And one other question about e-bikes I have from Ying Jin here. Back in the day when bike share first started as pure pedal cycle without any electric assist, we always used to see patterns where bikes would accumulate at the bottom of hills and the operator would have to move them to the top of the hills. Do you have any evidence that that's different for the e-bikes, or do people still like riding downhill?
Yeah, I mean, you still have the issue when you have e-bikes. What you will see that the demand for e-bikes will be much higher when you are down the hill, and the demand for mechanical bike will be higher when you are up the hill. So you still have this issue of rebalancing, rebalancing the bike uphill and downhill. And I think that with e-bikes, it can add a little bit of complexity because you also have to manage the mix between e-bikes and mechanical bikes, which won't be the same if you are downhill or uphill. So it's not solving this specific issue. It's just making the system more used uphill because people are taking e-bikes to go uphill. But in terms of rebalancing, you still have the issue.
Okay, thank you. And would you ever have other thing like 100% e-bike scheme, or would you incorporate scooters in your scheme? Is that on the cards at all?
Yes. So we have developed a module which is adaptable to any scooters. So and then which can make e-scooters dockable in Smoove stations. So yes, this is something that we are offering, and with our station, we have the possibility to offer also e-scooters in the scheme.
Now I've got a couple of UK specific questions coming in. One is, do you have any plans to the UK to come to the UK? And the other is, Which single UK city would you be most interested in operating a scheme in?
I think that the focus we have today is Manchester, because it's a big scheme. It's a scheme where the city has a lot of ambition, and it's a city which is in a lot of ways very similar to Paris in terms of challenges around the vandalism, around the needed robustness of the bikes. And so we see a lot. We see that everything we've learned in Paris is very useful for what the city of Manchester wants to do. So yes, to answer your question, so yes, we are targeting the UK, and the first city we'd like to be in is Manchester, because we are sure that the system we have developed in Paris is very well adapted to this city. And then, of course, we know that today we have a lot of cities in the UK which are quite ambitious around the bike sharing system. So we also we know that Leeds also have plan. We know that at some point London will also change the system. So the UK is one of the big opportunities in Europe today in terms of bike sharing systems. So yes, we are targeting several cities in the UK.
There's quite a lot of fascination on the in the questions on your technology, particularly how this technology works that enables you to see whether a bike is knocked over or standing upright or has a flat tire and things like that. Could you explain a little bit more about that?
So it's the technology is just a matter of the sensors you put in your communication module and the way you use the information. For example, the flat tire, which is something which is not available today on the bike, but which is in the roadmap. In this, we are not putting like sensors in the tires. We have a sensor and we are interpreting the data given by the bike. And we know that because of the way the bike is moving, we know that the tire is flat. And so we are not like trying to add hundreds of sensors on the bikes. We are just trying to find good interpretation of what the sensor which are already in the bikes are giving. And so that's the way we are working on that. So and this, for example, for flat tires. Then for all the remote diagnosis, it's just the way the protocol we are using, which is not going into too much detail, but the CAN protocol we are using allows us to have all the information on the condition of the e-bikes and all the electric system on the bike. But basically, yes, our approach is really not to add too many sensors, because when you have too many sensors, it's just more way of having failures in your system. So it's just using the sensors you have, but finding way of interpreting the data of these sensors.
Interesting. I've had a few questions about accessibility and inclusiveness. One from Andrew McVie about whether you have got a system for allowing transport passes to be used to hire bikes, and another asking about how people who don't have smartphones can hire your bikes.
So we have the RFID on all our bikes, so they are usable with the public transport pass, like in Paris or in a lot of other cities we are in. So you just need to have your normal public transport pass, and then you can unlock the bike. For the users without a public transport pass and without smartphone, it depends on what the city will choose. You have two choices basically. The first one is to still have some I don't know, we call this in English, like the totem, you know, the information panel with a screen. Sorry.
Yes. I think yes, an information panel is yes.
Yeah. So you still need to have this panel, but it's quite expensive. And the other way is to manage it in a more manual way, and to have people just subscribe to the system and get a card which will work like a public transport pass and that you will use to unlock the bikes. So basically, it's if you want to do it without any information panel screen, if you want to do it without that, you will just need to have a card, a pass, which is working with RFID, and it can be a public transport pass, or it can be a pass which is specific to the bike share system.
Interesting. One of the other questions is that some of the schemes, like for instance Nextbike, if you have a Nextbike membership in one city, it works across the world, so you can still hire bikes. Do you have that kind of functionality that you could hire sign up in Paris and then hire a bike, a Smoove bike, anywhere in Moscow or wherever else?
No, we don't. Our scheme is really made for the city, and we can have a lot of different specific. I mean, we adjust the system to the city needs, so it can be slightly different from a city to another, and so it's not always totally compatible from a city to another. And yes, we think that this is a decision of the city to have a system which is compatible with another city. It can be, but I mean, it's basically it's something we are working with the city, and it's not, I would say, our decision to make it usable on any other cities. But as we will have an app to unlock the system, yes, the app will be the same from a city to another. It doesn't mean that you will be able to unlock with the pass from this city, you will be able to unlock a bike in another city, but the app and the way of interacting with the system will be the same from a city to another, yes.
A question about rebalancing. How have you organised rebalancing within cities? Is it via diesel vans? Have you done used cargo bikes, or do you incentivise rebalancing with cheap fares or cheap rides for people going in certain directions?
So we are not operating the system, so we are not managing the rebalancing in the cities. For example, in Paris, Smoove is the operator and is managing the rebalancing. What we are doing as a solution provider is that we are giving the tools to make sure that the rebalancing is easy to make. So and all the tools that we've mentioned around the predictability, etc. So we are giving the software solution to make sure that the rebalancing can be done easily by the operator, but we are not managing ourselves the rebalancing. This is the operator which is doing this.
Another sort of data-related question. Our e-scooter operator can reduce the speed of the scooters in pedestrian areas and downpower them outside the hire area. Is that something that you could do, or potentially now or in the future for the e-bikes, obviously?
Oh, technically, yes. This is something we can do. This is not something that we have planned to do and which is in our roadmap, but technically it's not given the technology we are using on our e-bikes, it's not something complicated to do.
I've also got some questions about your pricing. Pete Ashworth, a share bike trip tends to be more expensive than alternative modes, particularly if you're using your own bike or a swap feet bike. Have you been trying to bring the cost per trip down? What's determining the cost in your view, and should it be as expensive as it is, or should it be cheap stroke free? We have had an issue in the UK. We've had a lot more free trips with the COVID lockdown response, with a lot of our bike share operators operating free periods for particularly key workers. So it would be quite interesting to know what your views of pricing, what it should be, and what actually goes it, the realities of it as well.
So yeah, this is quite a complicated question. I think again, we are not directly managing the pricing because we are not the operator, so we are not directly managing the pricing in the scheme we are working on. What I can just give is my view on this, but not what we are doing, because we are not doing it. I think that yes, of course, a trip which is made on a privately owned bike is of course much less expensive for the city than a trip which is made on a bike share system. But again, bike share system is really a part of the public transport, and we know that the public transport has a cost. We know that you're not putting a bus lane to make profit. You're not building a new tube line to make profit. But it has a cost, but it has a cost which makes sense versus what you are comparing it to. I mean, for example, if you have this system and your bike share system, which is really well done with the public transport system, which is well interfaced with the public transport system, it makes all the public transport system more efficient. So you can't just think about the bike just for the bike, but it's a bike amongst the public transport system. So if you are just looking at the bike, yes, it's more expensive bike share ride than a privately owned share ride, but it's making the whole public transport system more efficient and more clean. So at the end, you need to evaluate the cost overall, and it's much more complicated than comparing the cost of swap fit and of a bike share system.
Interesting. Yes, it's the looking at the whole, and at the moment we are trying to reduce the capacity, reduce the pressure on public transport with bike share, so it's got a different role than possibly previously. I have another question. I think a few of our Sharper Eyed viewers have noted your early relationship with Transdev, and there are quite a few questions about integration with bus operators in general, or Transdev in particular. I have one here that says, are you working with Transdev as a bus and tram operator to deliver integration? There are some examples in the UK, like First Bus and Cardiff buses are integrated with Beryl and Next Bike in the southwest for local final mile. Manchester has 2 major Transdev operations sending express commuter services into Manchester. Nottingham has NET, which requires onward connections, and typically up to 50% of bike hires are linked to a train journey in most cities. So are you using your relationship with Transdev, or do you have any other relationships developed to enable that kind of shared journey?
Yes, I mean we have good relationships with Transdev, and we are using it in some cities, but we don't have any exclusive partnership with operators. So we, in some cities, yes, we are partnering with a transport operator like Transdev, but we are also partnering with other transport operator, for example, RATP, RATP Dev in France. We are sometimes partnering with bike share operator specialists like Movenska. We are sometimes partnering with large public like Serco in the UK. So we are partnering with Serco in Manchester. So we don't have exclusive partnership in the different cities. And for example, if we take the example of the transport operator like Transdev, they are not always interested in one scheme or another. It really depends on their strategy. So you can't rely only on this kind of partnerships to position yourself in different cities. So we are very open to different partnerships. We try to be quite exclusive in a geography. So we don't want to have 10 different partners in the UK. So today we are partnering with Serco, and we want to partner with Serco for all we are going to do in the UK. But yeah, it really depends on the city and on the transport operator strategy, and so yes, we are partnering with Transdev, but not always.
Could you just explain? Did you say that you are partnering exclusively with Serco in the UK, or did I misunderstand that?
I mean, our ambition is not to. We don't want to have different partners in the same country. So when we have one partner in the country, we are trying to stay with this partner for all the opportunities we have in the country. And so, as I've just said, today we are partnering with Serco in Manchester, and yeah, we want to partner with Serco for all the other opportunities we position ourselves in the UK.
So any kind of so is that the nature of your sort of operator relationships as the kind of operations provider? You're partnered with them as the operator.
Yeah, Serco is the operator, and we are the solution provider.
Right. Okay. Thanks for clarifying that. An issue close to my heart has just come in. Would Smoove include an e-cargo cycle for UK schemes for families and local businesses?
Sorry, say again?
Would you be interested in, or have you looked at providing e-cargo bikes, particularly within the UK context?
I mean, this is something that we are always studying, but it's the more diversity you have in your bike fleet, and the more complicated it is to manage. When you already have like e-bikes and mechanical bikes, and if you want to add cargo bikes in the system, you want to add, for example, children bikes, like we've seen in some tenders in Eastern Europe. If you want to add child seats on your bike, I mean, it becomes very quickly very complicated to manage. So the demand needs to be high because we can't have like 10 different bikes on the scheme. So the demands for the specific bike need to be high. Cargo bikes are a very good solution for city or logistics, but the demand would be much lower than for any other bikes. So at the end, you can offer cargo bikes in your system, but the user that wants a cargo bike will never find a cargo bike, because we will have like one cargo box in a station, like which is 500 meters from where the user is standing. So it's not really manageable in a bike share system. It's too complicated to manage.
A little bit about rider safety then. What issues of rider safety have been used in Paris, like limiting speed or helmets, that could be offered into a UK scheme? So have you got any sort of reflections on rider safety measures?
I think that and it won't be something new for anyone on this webinar, but the first one is the infrastructure. I mean, in Paris, it is much safer today to ride a bike because you have dedicated cycle lane, protected cycle lane, and so people can ride a bike in a very safe way versus 10 years ago when they had to share the lane with the cars and buses. So it's the first thing. I think that in terms of other solution, it's more a way of sensibilization of the people on wearing helmets. It's complicated to. I mean, we thought about solution to provide the helmet with the system, but it's really too complicated to manage. So we don't have like any solution which is easy to implement. So it's just a matter of sensibilization of the riders to make sure that they wear helmets, etc. But the main thing is, of course, the infrastructure and the fact that you have dedicated cycle lane which are protecting the cyclists.
Interesting. I think our little exchange about operations at Serco has provoked more questions. One of Andrew McVie, our possibly most prolific questioner on my question panel here, asks, Serco operate London and Edinburgh bike hire schemes. Does this mean you would run their schemes in the future?
No, I mean, unless there's a retender or a renewal of the scheme, but we are providing the solution to Serco, who is operating the system. So at the end, Serco is choosing the solution they are operating. So Serco has the link with the city, and Serco is deciding on which solution they are using. So we are happy to have been able to convince Serco that our solution and our solution in terms of hardware, IoT, and software is the best one that they could have. But at the end, it's just a circle decision. So if they want to go for another solution, they can change it.
So just to clarify, the relationship, you're mainly partnering with operators. Do you partner straight directly with cities at all, or just with operators?
We are, generally speaking, we are partnering with operators. So our clients are operators, and the operators are working with the cities. In some cities, especially in France, because we know the cities very well, and we are used to work directly with the cities in France. We are sometimes directly working with the cities and directly interacting with cities, but internationally, no, we are always partnering with an operator.
Okay, interesting. I think that's going to clarify lots of questions that people have asked in the box. Okay. We've just got 5 minutes to go, so if there are any questions that you think haven't been answered, feel free to tell us anything that you think that maybe we've missed out on, whilst I have a quick look at the just to check that any of these questions myself haven't been answered.
No, I think we've covered a lot of the especially a lot of the lessons we've learned from Paris, because as you know, and I think that we focused all these lessons around Paris because of the size of Paris, because of the fact that, as I've said, we had a learning curve which is amazing, because when you have 20,000 bikes on the ground, you have like a very, very large ground for experience, for experimentations, and that's why we have made our product evolve so fast, just because of this experience in Paris. And yes, I think that in terms of lessons, we have pretty much covered the most important ones.
So your experiences of very big schemes in difficult to manage areas. I'm really interested in your approaches to vandalism, because that's one of the things that I personally have seen as something that really distresses me, to be absolutely honest, and undermines the validity of schemes. One of the last questions that I have is, when a lot more people are using bikes, do they get more or less vandalism? I mean, my feeling is that people become quite protective towards them when they're very dependent on them, and I wondered whether that was borne out at all by any of the data.
And that's why the first bullet point we put on the way to reduce vandalism is to make sure that your system is the most inclusive it can be. The more people will ride your bikes, and the less vandalism you will have, and that's for sure. And the more areas you will cover in the city with your bike system, the less issues you will have. So you just need to have like a system which is as much inclusive as it can be, and a system which is serving the whole cities and every community in the city, and it's the best way to reduce vandalism.
That's absolutely great, and I think that's one of the most important issues, is that we build schemes that everyone can use, and it's been really fascinating listening to the Smoove operations layer. I like to think of it as you work with other operators, but you provide this solution which is a kind of layer of operations that could be used by cities, whether in the UK or in the rest of the world. So given that I think we've got a really good conclusion to the day, I'd like to say thank you very much, Benoit, and thank you to Landor Links for hosting this discussion, and thanks again to everyone who sent questions. I think that those of you who could see the kind of like questions that are coming in quick and fast will probably know that I've missed a few out. So Landor will be downloading those. Everyone's registered, so I think that those registrations will mean that people do get answers to their questions. There are a lot of people then were asking whether you're coming to the UK and whether you could come to their city. So I think you'd be quite in demand after the presentation. Thank you very much, everybody, and it's been great chatting to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye.